Thank you. Well, we have already sing and prayer, so we will just begin. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be with each and every one of you. Special day, 2 years anniversary since July 18th. Um, and it seems we as a movement are already moving forward, even though the Sunday law studies continue being of great importance. We are no longer in the dispensation um, that we called the Sunday law. Or at least that's what has been taught, and it's our duty as students of prophecy to wrestle with those ideas and understand them by ourselves. To me, it becomes even more important the solid ground that the Sunday law was built upon when now we are beginning to talk about the following way, Mark. Because one thing that gives me a lot of confidence in the current messages that are messages that are teaching we are in the time of trouble already. One thing that gives me personally a lot of confidence that we are in correct path. It's how careful and how thorough we were about the Sunday law. I have said this several times in the past months already, but I will repeat it once again. It was a very unique experience that we had with the Sunday law. Because different to the past, where a leader is raised up, this leader presents a message, and it is the responsibility of the members to accept it and move forward. The message was strictly tied to the messenger. There was little room for questioning. And even though this time, for the Sunday law, a messenger was raised up, and Elder Terry gave us the first proofs for the Sunday law message. As a movement, we went through a different experience. We could say that the movement basically embraced the debate. The movement accepted as something positive the fact that there was questions. and space was given to each of the different ideas. The different teachings, conflicting ideas were given for people to decide. For everyone to listen to. Whereas before, we wouldn't do it in the same way. We would be more scared to contradict a messenger or a leader. It reminds me of the Great Controversy, where God allowed Satan's ideas to be presented to the universe. I'm not trying to say that there's a perfect parallel. What I want to compare is the willingness to have a discussion. And I think that speaks about the maturity that we as a movement arrived. And it came just in time so that we could be very, very sure that we know the Sunday Law message. Because people who opposed the um, the ideas of the Sunday Law message, or people who had alternatives to the Sunday Law message, they are at the same time participating in the teachings today. So that tells us about how sure we can be that the message was developed carefully. And while we as a movement progressed through the studies during the Sunday Law Initiative, the proof became stronger. So we really have a strong foundation. And it all reaches a climax when we arrive to the understanding of Revelation 17. And right when we thought we were starting to understand the Sunday Law message, but the foundation was ready, we are already talking about the following waymark. So I think that is important. And I will try to explain why I mean. So we have July 18th, 2024. And I have said we took a lot of time to establish this waymark. I appreciate that maybe there's still some questions about it. I have tried to spend my teaching time trying to explain why it is very solid. But once you accepted this waymark, and specifically everything that surrounds it, because it speaks about institutions, this waymark speaks about the sixth, but also the seventh. Once you have accepted this, you've entered into, how can I say, we have crossed a line. We have crossed an invisible boundary that no other Christian movement has crossed in the past 100 years. It seems that we now have real doctrinal proofs for us to start having an idea of how soon is the second coming. I have no idea when is the second coming, of course, but what I'm saying is that we will know very soon. The issue of the second coming is going to confront us at some point. Like it confronted our um, Adventist pioneers. So, so I said that we cross an invisible boundary when we understand the Sunday law message. And there's several reasons for it, but I want to focus on some aspects that we can find in Revelation 17. We are students of prophecy. We have several prophetic lines in our minds when we speak about prophecy. We have chapters in our minds that are being fulfilled. And we are recently talking about Revelation 17 a lot. So when we accepted July 18, we basically said the beast was resurrected. So the resurrection of the beast. Very important prophetic development. The resurrection of the beast is strictly connected to the woman of Revelation 17. That woman came back to power. So that is what the beast is, the unity of the woman and a political institution. But there's something else that begins in July 18. If we go to Revelation 17, verse 12, I will read it in English and then you can read it. So Revelation 17:12 says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast." So the 10 kings also receive power, whatever they are. And we know this prophecy continues. We want to jump some verses. And verse 16 says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, this shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire." 17, "For God has put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled." So there's a waymark in the future that speaks about a conflict between the woman and the 10 kings. This is one line of prophecy, but I want to bring another line of prophecy quickly. And I want to read verse 45 of Daniel 11. And it says, "And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. And yet," this is the part that I want to emphasize, "yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him." It says, "He shall come to his end and none shall help." This time is the king of the north. I'm not going to define what waymark that is. I'm going to call it unknown waymark. But there is a waymark where the king of the north comes to his end and no one help. Nobody helps. This is in contrast. If it is being said that no one shall help, this is parabolic teaching. It means someone was helping before. At some point, that this help is no longer given to him. So I can say that no one helps at the end, but at the beginning, he receives help, whatever that is. King of the North is helped by someone. But I want to focus on the part that at the end, no one will help. So when we go back to Revelation 17, we know who is helping the beast. We read it already. Verse 13 says, "These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast." So who's helping? The 10 kings. So the 10 kings are helping. They give their power and strength to the beast. Please remember, the beast is the union of the bad woman with the powerful institution. And the 10 kings support that. That's what we find in July 18th. We don't need to define who are the 10 kings. I want us to understand it in that level. Just at that simple level. So now the logical conclusion is that this beast will be killed again. That's in the chapter 17. We have read it many times in the past. Um, if we read, for example, 17:11, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth, and it's of the seven, and goes into perdition. So it goes to perdition here. Perdition. Um, I, and it explains how it goes to perdition. The way that you kill the beast, it's by destroying the relationship with the woman. That's why it says that the 10 kings, they shall hate the whore. Hate, it's something that happens in the mind. So maybe that is something that happens before. But at some point they take action. And it says they make her desolate, naked, and they burn her with fire. So I'm just going to say the 10 kings kill the woman. I don't know if the correct word is killing. Maybe we can say they abandoned her. So I could say abandon. I use abandon because Daniel says no one shall help. It's the same. When you don't help, you let it die. So this is where we stand. We are in the present here. In the future, the woman will be abandoned by the Ten Kings. Ten Kings that receive power together with the beast in July 18. And those Ten Kings receive power with the beast in July 18th. Now listen carefully. We are, the way I see it, we have two possibilities. Either, this is first possibility number one. In 2 years, the Republicans will win again. Yes. Somehow the Republicans are going to make a miracle because they are in an incredible mess. The Republicans told the people that they should vote for Trump, that the economy would be fixed, that there will be no wars, and that only he will take care of America. But America has never been so bad. Entering into other countries, losing wars, destroying the economy. It would be a great miracle if the Republicans can win again. But that is option number one. They win and they manage to put forward another person with similar ideology. So the bad woman continues just through another person. That is possibility number one. Possibility number two, which is what it currently looks like, is that Trump is a politically dead person. He will lose the midterms in November. He will continue doing bad, and he cannot run again already. He's not only too old, he legally he cannot run. Even if he wanted to start a revolution, it would be very hard that he will have the support for that. So if we are honest with ourselves, there are great chances that Trump is going to have a very miserable end of presidency. You know, there have been bad presidents in the past. But things are looking like Trump is really going to be hated. But more importantly, it seems he's already been in a difficult relationship with his own party, the party that supported him at the beginning, which whom he received power for 1 hour. So I'm not saying this is the truth. We will probably know more about this as we continue studying, but there are great chances that Trump is going to be a very lonely, abandoned president at the end of his presidency. And that will fulfill the words of Revelation 17. And because it fulfills Revelation 17, it fulfills Daniel 11:45. So we're really near the end of the final prophetic events. So you all know that recently the studies of the new covenant were presented. I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to study them and watch those videos. I hope you all had that opportunity. But among the many things that were told in that study is that the close of probation is actually in the past, in January 3rd, 2026. It is our duty now to study this and make sure that we agree. But according to the story that I was telling you right now, it makes sense to me because this way marked July 18. It's very solid and it was very well constructed. It was carefully, let's say, examined by very several people. It wasn't just a doctrine that we accepted because we were forced to. No, we spent 2 years doing this. So once that is very uh, established, you now have Trump the woman, the the rise of this seventh kingdom, then the close of probation, and now we seem to have entered the decline of this kingdom. Everything very quickly. And I wonder why it has to be so quickly. Well, There's no reason for it to take too long. Everything that we have seen, I mean, the whole human history, the kingdoms, the rise and fall of nations, that will be all lessons that we will carry to heaven. Because, well, look at this example. One of the most important waymarks in Bible prophecy, the resurrection of the beast. We're going to go to heaven, and some people will ask, and what was the event? How was the resurrection of the beast? Probably people who had expectations, crazy events or something. And the surprising answer would be, oh, it was the Republican convention. Such a small thing is the resurrection of the beast. Not even something big, like at least a national election or, I don't know, a war or something. No, the Republican National Convention. And it's because that's where the institution failed. That is the event that cannot happen in the institution in heaven, never in eternity. The the assurance that death and sin will not rise again comes from the well understood events that happen on earth. We will carry all of our doctrines and lines to heaven, and, and we will have all the safety guardrails to prevent this to happen again. Um, so, brief summary of what I've been trying to say right now. Because the Sunday Law message was so carefully developed, once you have that waymark firmly established, I would suggest the final two waymarks are easier to understand. And how fast we already arrived to the following waymark. And it is our job now to fully understand the um, how you call COP in French? CPG? FTG. So I would like to start introducing a little bit of the ideas, repeat some of the things that were said about the Old and New Covenant lines. Which I believe uh, it's connected to this whole thing that we're talking about. So we have talked about, we have been told about the Old and New Covenant lines. And one interesting thing about those lines is that they are not new to us. We have talked about those lines for a long time right now. We call them ancient Israel, modern Israel. And we have an even bigger line that we call Eden to Eden line. So God has been preparing us for this moment. So we have the study of the Old and New Covenant. And I want to talk about it, how I understand it. First, it's the characteristics of an old covenant. An old covenant, it's temporary. That's one thing. It is conditional. And it requires a mediator. Um, and connected to all of this, there's the repetitive aspect of the old covenant. An old covenant requires you to repeat an action over and over again for you to stay alive. You need to repeat it constantly. So I will add here the repetition. The Old and New Covenant lines are three. This is the characteristics of the Old Covenant. But some characteristics about the new is that it is permanent. And not also permanent, but it is um, something that we can call principle based. So there's no really conditions, but there's a principle that applies constantly. We will see that better later. and there's no mediator. No one you don't need anybody to teach you because once you understood the principle, you will know how to apply it. And that's why it is permanent. Once you understand it, you cannot not understand it. So that is, and of course, there's no repetition. So no repetition. And that would be um, the new covenant. Okay. So I mentioned that there's three lines, and it all begins with ancient Israel, which we know the mediator, it's it's people. I added Moses, but after Moses it will be Joseph or Joshua, and so on and so forth. One prophet after the other. Something important about this first line is that this line is the original. You can also call it explicit text. This is the line that we have recorded history about. It is very well documented. So that's why we call it the original. By original, I mean the template. And this is how it goes. Orange, this color will represent the old covenant. And it goes, for Israel, it goes from Sinai to, let's say, 34 AD, which is the stoning of Stephen, which is the year that Israel is no longer God's nation. The old covenant goes from Sinai to 34. The new covenant goes from 34 to the future. But it begins to be introduced, ideas begin to be introduced before. So let not be confusion about this. It's not that the new covenant started before, but ideas about it need to be introduced so people can get used to. And we find that more or less in the story of, in the verse by Jeremiah that says about the, talks about the new covenant. If we want to use a verse, a year for this, this will be after the captivity in Babylon, 538. Now, there is a period of time where the new covenant needs to be introduced with a lot of strength, which is here. And that is the period of the ministry of Christ. So we can say this is 27 AD. So we have, I'm going to say Old Covenant using the letters OC. So OC, it's given here. It is based on the Mosaic law. It is based on bloodline. And it is based on mediators. Then post-captivity, Israel will no longer have kings. Which is very important. It doesn't have any state authority. Israel begins to be organized around religion only. They don't have a state anymore. In the past, we will say that this is a negative thing. Because Israel behaved so bad that now God took the right to have a government. But it is actually a step in the old covenant. Sorry, I meant step. Let me emphasize something. The old covenant is good. Horrible things happen during the old covenant, but it is good. In fact, you can only arrive to the new covenant if you go through the old covenant. The old covenant is going to be like a teacher until you can reach the fullness of the understanding of the law. Remember this? It has to be principle based. But in order to be principle based, you need to understand the principle. To take humans to understand the principle, it takes time. And what else you need? You need a mediator. You need an old covenant. In the case of Israel, you need a sanctuary. You need to kill lambs every day. In fact, you need to do a bunch of things that doesn't make any sense. Of course, for Israelites, it makes sense. But this is what happens to Paul. Paul is here standing well after the new covenant, and he will tell people that there's no need to obey those laws. The sanctuary, the feast, the circumcisions, all of that is a performance. It's like what to call a play, like Romeo and Juliet, an act. Exactly. It is a play of theater. So the play of theater, it is important, and it will bring you to maturity, but then it becomes useless. You cannot keep repeating and repeating and repeating. Killing lambs forever. No. Jesus comes and tells you this gospel is for everyone, Gentiles and Jews alike. You go and treat your neighbor the way you wish you were treated. Everyone is deserving of love and respect. Once you understand that, that is principle based. You don't need the old covenant anymore. So this is level one. Level two, which is the following line, which I honestly understand not very much, but it's the same principle. So follow with me. Now it's not ancient Israel. This is what we call modern Israel, which also has mediators. We can call them Miller, Ellen White. I could put more people like Jeff Pippin or even Tess Lambert. So you remember I said here, Israel is the original explicit text. This is our parable methodology at play. The second line is not explicit text, is not original, is an application. So we do the same. We draw orange for the Old Covenant. We will have a Sinai, which we can call 1798, time of the end. And the end, we can say 2026. So this is this. Oh, Sorry. FPG, right? No. Okay. Thank you. So this is the FTG. How is time of the end? Okay, TDF. So this is the old covenant. You remember that it is temporary, conditional, and needs a mediator. And it's repetitive, meaning um, meaning that you need to do things over and over again because it's a performance, like a play. But it's more complex because it's not sanctuary, it's not sacrificial lambs. So let's try to find out what is temporary in this line. So, time of the end, old covenant is given, and what we receive, I know it's not exactly 1798, but it's the prophetic message. We can summarize it in the charts. So we have the charts, the statue and the horses and the beast and everything. That is the law, like for Israel. For Israel, it was based on bloodline, very family based. But for us, it's going to be something like very Christian. It has to be very Christian and Protestant. And it has to be based on a end time Bible view. We are going to be very, how can I say, loyal to the biblical view of end time. The same as Israel is going to be very loyal to their uh, rituals and performance. But of course, there's a new covenant, and it begins formally in 2026. But the same as Israel, it cannot come out of nowhere. It needs a moment when it is introduced. So ideas can begin to take root. And this is progressive. You could say that some ideas begin in 1888. Justification by faith and all of that. But it's also a very legality emphasis movement as well. So it's difficult. But please understand that it's already happening in Israel. If I zoom in this history, you see two groups. People who really hold sacred and holy the old covenant. And they say that it is heretical to go against the old the laws. They refuse to understand that it is something that needs to be let go. But there's a group who is listening to Jesus and they are accepting, even when they don't know it, they are accepting new covenant ideas. The same is happening in modern Israel. For example, we have 1989, and this is where the new covenant gets stronger and stronger. And 27 AD, I can call 2019. I'm making this parallel. This is where the message of equality arrives. So this is where stronger ideas of new covenant begin. What else begins in 2019? I will make you, I could go on and on, but let's give some examples. From 2019 onward, many things happens among us. First, the papacy is not going to pass a Sunday law. But it is in the charts. There's actually no, it's not gonna be the papacy. It's not gonna be anybody because there's not gonna be Sunday law at all. And it gets worse. There's not gonna be a loud cry and a what was the name of the ministry before AIA? There's not gonna be Le Grand Cri again ever. If you remember during Jeff Pippinger's the ensign that will be lift up, which is based on Ellen White's understanding of prophecy. There's no persecution to Sabbath keepers anymore. No, nobody will know us. It gets worse. At some point, I don't know what year, we even arrived to the conclusion that they don't even need to know us. I hope that is not taking any of you by surprise because it's been happening for several years now. And we have accepted all of that. But now we know why. Because the old covenant ideas were the prophetic Adventist ideas. In Israel, it was the Mosaic laws and the sanctuary, and that Israel was going to be the greatest nation on earth, and it will dominate the world. Everything they hoped for never happened. because it was temporary. It was shadows and symbols that they needed to have in order to preserve the bloodline so that a group of people at the end could accept the Messiah. And people could say, finally, I understand the law. It happens the same with Adventism. We have charts that say that Islam is the woes. We have charts that say that it is the papacy who will resurrect. Now we say it's Trump. We have many prophetic views that are simply not in the charts because they were symbols. But more than that, they were necessary for that group of people so that it could create a Christian denomination, preserve it from the dangers of the world, so that at the end they could study prophecy and understand the principle based of the true law of God. That's why we have embraced uh, the laws of equality, while maintaining our loyalty to God. So that would be the second line. And before we close for our break, I want us to remember that there's a third level, the third old new covenant line that begins in Eden and finishes in 2026 as well. Um, so it's parallel to Adventism, parallel here in the end. So I will put Eden and 2026. The beauty of having two lines before this one is that now we know what to expect. There has to be conditional things in this line. There has to be repetitive things in this line. Things that you need to do over and over again so you can get the benefits of the old covenant. And similar to Israel, when you get to the end, it will have the element of actually the Gentiles are included as well in these benefits. Or for us, which already happened, we have said that we have even given names to them. We call them Nethinims. We study one last word. We study their books. We read their articles. We even vote for them. So we do believe people outside the movement, they obey the laws of equality. So the two lines above prepare us for the understanding of the third. We will close here. Should I pray or how we do it? Perfect. Dear God, we thank you a lot for the privilege of living in this time. It is in itself a privilege to see your work. Please continue being with us. In the name of Jesus, amen.